Welcome back to Fast Market on the Schwab Network. I'm Diane King Hall alongside Kevin Hanks over at the SIBO. Time now for our cash tag segment. We're taking a look at Walmart. For that, we want to bring in our next guest, and that is Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio.com. Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. So yesterday we talked about Target, and one of the points that Landon made was that, to give perspective on the comp. So there's some year-over-year comparison that we should think about when looking at these retailers. So Walmart's next up and back with earnings. How does sentiment look based on your data?
Whenever we look at Walmart, I know that there's a chart that we passed along that is really stark because we have our e-commerce data and stock data almost exactly in lockstep. Both are up about 15% year over year. And we also have some early indicators from some peers that reported this week. We saw Target report. I think, if you were to just glance at that Target report, you'd say, oh man, this was a horrible report. Whenever I looked at the stock before I got on to talk to you guys, I think it's down about a point. In contrast, whenever you look at TJ Maxx, you think, oh, that's a great report. The stock is up about a point to about flat. So not huge moves here. And a lot of it has to do with where the bar was set, where expectations were. And I think a lot of the news coming out isn't necessarily shocking. Target said consumers are, their budgets are stretched, they're value hunting. TJ Maxx said, yes, we've got a lot of, higher income shoppers that are trading down, that are shopping here, looking for value. So there's a common theme here. And you can see on this chart where Walmart falls in the mix. It's right in the middle. And we think that's where Walmart falls in the mix whenever we consider its consumer base, right in the middle. You've got a pocket of consumers who are higher earners that are likely trading down to a Walmart. But you also have a big budget of low-income consumers in the Walmart bucket as well, whose budgets are being stretched. And so we see a little bit of push and pull whenever we look at our data with Walmart, but we also see some strength here. We see some strength in the stock. So right now we think that the market has Walmart priced almost exactly right. Whenever it comes to an edge, when we're looking for these divergence plays, our signal is coming out pretty neutral for Walmart.
Megan, the LikeFolio data that we've been seeing on Target, Landon made his case that it was getting better, right? Improvement. Walmart showing similar numbers in terms of improvement, but as we all know, Target isn't Walmart, right? If Walmart hits their sales numbers this quarter, that's $700 billion in revenue over the last 4 quarters. It's nothing short of gargantuan. And something we say a lot on this show, Megan, though this company is massive, right? They still act like a very small company, very lean, very agile. They've got, their regular numbers are going to be modest in terms of growth. Earnings per share up 3.4%, revenue up 4.6%. But if you look at their growth, their ability to grow, U.S. advertising, global advertising, the Walmart Connect, there's things that are going to raise their margins because even though this company's massive, they continue to do things that spur growth. Now, their PE is not cheap. It's historically a little high, but we may be redoing their PE as we think because this company is evolving into the next level. Your data gives strength for Walmart. Do we trust it like we trust it for Target? Is it the same? I don't think Walmart and Target are the same. I think Target's lost somewhere in the middle. Walmart is the clear winner in terms of trading down and value shopping, Megan.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think also there's an element of the market is expecting this. The market is expecting Walmart to be this big winner and this big, trade down beneficiary. And certainly we've seen a massive transformation when it comes to sentiment. That's not charted. We used to talk about this massive gap in sentiment where Target was leading and Walmart was really trailing when it came to the overall consumer experience. And that has kind of flipped. Right now we've got Walmart who's edging ahead, where consumers who, previously you never would have heard talking about buying apparel or buying gifts or buying some of these things from Walmart, and now they're talking about that, and they're posting these finds and these dupes and these perceived high quality items from Walmart. And so I think that there's certainly an edge there. I think it really just comes down to where our expectations, and And does Walmart say, yes, we are continuing to beat, we are continuing to crank these levers like you talked about. Advertising, I think, was up 46% year over year. E-commerce profitability doubled. So these are all really, really great levers that Walmart is pulling, and can they continue to execute? Our data says, yeah, they're continuing to execute. When we look at that year-over-year change, I compared it even on a quarter-over-quarter level. It's coming in at a positive 15% year-over-year this quarter. It was a positive 16% last quarter, which is nearly, from a momentum perspective, that tells us that that Walmart has been able to sustain the momentum that it had last quarter. But if you look at the earnings reaction last quarter, I think the stock was down initially 4% after a pretty strong report. So a little bit of, I think, a question of what are true expectations and where does Walmart come in and deliver. We certainly think that Walmart has a lot of strength and it's a winner right now, but I think that the street also expects this. So for us, in terms of an edge, our data just doesn't have a clear view either way of how we expect the stock to react after this one.
Interesting. Meg, I'm glad you mentioned the dupe. I remember the dupe. I think it was earlier this year when they had like a Birkin bag dupe, and then people were flocking to try and get that. One of the things that we noticed recently is, yes, shares are up double digits year to date, but it hit a speed bump recently with the announcement of a new CEO who's going to be taking over next year. Is that something that you think investors are watching for, like what the impact will be? And, to be fair, he's an inside man, so, rising up the food chain there. But I'm curious to know, does your data give any indication of, that question, an answer to that?
I think that there's certainly an element of uncertainty there. I will say that just from an investor sentiment perspective, something that we monitor, investor sentiment for Walmart is pretty high. We often talk about consumer sentiment, but we are kind of listening for both. So investor sentiment is high. I think expectations are high. But that level, that's kind of a wild card play at hand to see how he can, take the baton and continue to run. I don't know. I wish I had a clear-cut answer for you right now, but I will say that just from an overall sentiment read perspective, the investor sentiment for Walmart is certainly very high.
All right, thank you, Megan. That is Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio, with a look across Walmart. Now for the trading perspective on all things Walmart, I'm going to kick it over to Tom and Kevin.